Welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. This episode, I've been really frustrated with. I had something else I had planned to do. And due to recent events, I decided to not put that in there. I mean, we might touch on it. I really don't know where this is going to go. I have no show notes for this episode. So it is going to be just raw, a lot of monologue. So you might like this, you might not like this. Honestly, I don't care if you like it right now. I'm just going to kind of be speaking from the heart, and I'm going to do my best to not have any edits in this. I think we need to have a conversation, and I think it's important that we understand the world that we live in and the dynamic attack against our personal safety and our sovereignty, our freedom, all that stuff combined. There is a concentrated attack on us as Americans, whether it be our lives, what we stand for, our freedoms and our liberties, or all of the above. So I think we need to talk about it. By the way, welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. If you don't know who I am, my name is Steve Zimmerman. I'm obviously the host here. I've been in the firearms industry a long time. Professionally since 2014. I guess that's not a long time. What did I get? Well, like 11 years. But guns have been a part of my life since I was about 16, 17 years old. I didn't really grow up in a home where guns were really as important they are in my home. The home I grew up in, yeah, we had a couple of firearms, but they rarely got used. It wasn't a big priority in our lives. And I don't really blame my mom or dad. Like I don't think they were scared of guns or they hated guns, but they were just apathetic to them, I guess, at the most. But before we get into that, let me just say this on the near offset of the show. The Range Minded Podcast has been nominated for a Gundy for Podcast of the Year. Now, as I'm recording this is the 14th. Hopefully I get the show out by tomorrow, which is the 15th, which is the last day to vote for the Gundy. So maybe it doesn't even matter that I share this, other than I have been nominated for a Gundy. And I do honestly appreciate those that nominated the show. It is an honor to me. I know a lot of people kind of poo-poo the Gundys. They kind of mock what they are, which maybe that's the way it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But what it tells me is I have fans that care about the show, that care about me. They want to see me succeed. And just to be nominated is an honor. And to know that I've had many, many votes cast for the show, for that podcast of the year, that means a great deal to me. Whether I win the award or not, it honestly doesn't matter. Would it be cool to win? Yeah, absolutely. It would be cool to win. But does it mean the everything to the show? No. What means everything to me and to the show is knowing, first of all, that that I care about your rights and your safety. That's first and foremost. To let you guys know you have somebody standing in your corner that's willing to be a public voice and put my face out there, my name out there, as somebody that will stand for the Constitution, will stand for the freedoms, will stand for liberty, will stand for our rights to defend ourselves, to defend our families, to defend our communities against any enemy. And I mean that honestly, any enemy. So if this gets out in time, I actually get the show published by the 15th, where there's still time to vote, go ahead and jump on thegundys.com and cast that vote. If you missed out on the voting opportunity or you voted... if you missed out on the opportunity, it's okay. It's all right. If you were diligent and cast those votes every day, thank you. Thank you very much. This show, I don't get paid to do this show. It would be great if I did. I'm not going to lie, but I do this for free. It costs me time. It costs me money. Sometimes it costs me a lot of stress to make this show. But I do it because I'm passionate about the Second Amendment. I don't just focus solely personally on the Second Amendment. That's what this show is dedicated to. But freedom is what I stand for, and I will always stand for, and I will fight till my last breath to fight for your freedoms, for the freedoms of my children, and maybe when I have grandchildren for their freedoms, I will not back down to what I believe in, whether it be my God, my religion, my family, or our God-given rights to defend ourselves. I will always stand for those, and I will not compromise. And that's my promise to you on that. And this is why I had such a frustration with putting the show together. My plan was to kind of do a negative light again on this administration. Stuff I think that they're telling us one thing with one hand and doing something else with the other. A little bit of sleight of hand with our rights. And I honestly do believe that. I have a hard time believing that Pam Bondi has your firearms rights put on the forefront. I don't think she cares. I think President Trump is apathetic on your gun rights. I think there are members of Congress who work diligently to keep our rights secured, but I think that number's small. I think there's many in Congress, many representatives of many states that really don't give a damn, which is sad. And that's where our personal responsibilities as voters, as citizens, comes in to play, where we have to stand up and make our voices heard. You need to understand there are millions and millions of firearms owners in the United States, millions, that own guns legally, that follow the laws within their state the best that they can. In some states, they may not be able to exercise that right to their Second Amendment. But millions of Americans own firearms. Tens of millions of rounds are fired probably every day in the United States. Tens of millions by civilian hands for non-nefarious purposes. Okay? Of those millions of gun owners in the United States, there's somewhere around 500 million firearms in private possession, which is a much greater number than most national armies have in the world. You see, America set aside the Second Amendment for a purpose. The founders saw fit from experiences that they had in their lifetime and in the lifetime of their fathers, that understood that in order to secure freedom in any sort, the citizens had to have the ability to fight against tyrants. The founders not just put it into words, they put it into practice. They understood the value of freedom, which I don't think folks in office now value at all. I think we have a severe problem with our elected officials in the United States, a severe problem. And the first thing that they want out of the way is the Second Amendment. And they're going to use any means up to violence. Hopefully that doesn't ever come to that point, but I see there's a situation where that could be, and history provides that argument. Out of every country that disarms the citizens for their safety, the citizens fall victims to the government, whether it be in socialism, violent communism, or straight up annihilation by their government. History proves that argument. We live in a country that guarantees the rights of its citizens to not only keep and bear arms, but abolish the government if it fails to its duties. It's an obligation. Now, am I calling for violent arms to be raised against those who we put into office? Absolutely not. But what I think we need to remember is that we, the people of the United States, are the sole power. Sometimes we offer a segment of that power to representatives that we send to be our voice. And unfortunately, that small volunteered power that we give to these individuals has become corrupt. And they're using that power to whether deepen their pockets increase their portfolios, or just straight up try to be the boss when they are just a volunteer. I know this rhetoric, I said it, not you, is probably uncomfortable for some of you to hear. And I understand that. Maybe you don't have the constitution of yourself to feel the same way. But this I guarantee you feel. Something is not right in the United States. Something is definitely wrong in the world. We're seeing more and more violence, less and less heroism throughout the world. Why? Because the apathy of the individuals who are the majority that have volunteered a voice for their representation throughout the world has let them become corrupt, has let them become too comfortable. Again, I am not calling for violent insurrection, but it's about damn time that we, the people of the United States, stand up and make our voices heard. Because we are failing in many ways as a country. We're failing our communities, we're failing our families, and we're failing each other. How many of you know your neighbor's name? How many of you have dropped off cookies to that neighbor? How many of you have volunteered to the old guy that lives down the road that needs his this time of year, his snow shoveled out of his driveway or his sidewalk? How many of you done that? I admit, I have failed in that place. That's a problem. You see, when we let our communities deteriorate, that moves its way up the chain. It eventually becomes the state that has deteriorated, and then the nation. Then it is far too late to fix. Now is the time to wake up. Wake up and shake those chains that bind you and be citizens. Be the citizens that the founders expected us to be. Too late will be too late. You see, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, their freedom is in jeopardy. And I know you're saying, Steve, this is probably the most flagrant and wacky thing you've ever said. And maybe it is. But it's happening. And if you do not wake up, you will lose the freedoms that you thought you enjoyed. The time is now. Now, what brings this up? Listen, I am sick and tired of I wouldn't even call it discourse. The petty arguments, the junior high style arguments that happen when a tragedy happens. Last night, the 13th, Saturday, Brown University. It's all over the news. We all saw it. Some loser walked into an Ivy League school testing room where people were cramming for their finals. He said something. We have no idea what he said. Maybe we will at some point. He opens fire. He kills a couple. Wounds 9, I think, is the total at this point. And escapes. It vanishes. They've caught him since then. It sounds like today, Sunday, they apprehended an individual that they believe is the dude that did it. I don't say the names of mass shooters, those who mass murder is a better way to put it. I don't share the names. But guess what? We don't have, I guess we do have his name. Allegedly. I'm still not going to share it. But we don't know his motives. We don't know what he said. And for a long time, we didn't know what firearms he used. It was just people jumping on the bandwagon to be the first to say, oh, it was an assault weapon. When they don't even know what an assault weapon is. Sounds like, in the reports that I've seen lately, it was a handgun. Guess what? He committed an assault with a firearm, so I guess anything in that case would be an assault weapon, wouldn't it? He could have used a knife. That would have been a weapon of assault, wouldn't it? First off, I will never, just like we talked about before, I will never compromise my Second Amendment rights. I will not. But I'm tired of hearing about these stinking shootings that happen, right? But why do they happen? Where do they happen? When do they happen? Well, guess what? Brown University in July made their campus a completely gun-free zone. Do you think that has anything to do with it? I think that probably has something to do with why it lasted so long and why that asshole didn't do the cold ground temperature challenge on campus. They claim to have security, but security wasn't there. Are you going to have a security officer in every room of every building in that vicinity of the campus? Of course not. That is not an answer. Now, if somebody was concealed carrying and had the legal right to do so on campus, would they have stopped that shooting? There's no guarantee. But just the idea of any kind of resistance maybe would have deterred this thing from happening. Don't you think so? What about if my friend Jason with 3D Response, what if his system was involved in the school? It wouldn't have happened. There would have been a hardened place where this perpetrator could not have carried out his deeds. But they don't want to look at that, do they? The powers that be. No, you see, it is not the bad guy with the gun that's the problem. They attack the gun itself, an inanimate object that couldn't leave the safe on its own, that couldn't leave the holster on its own. Somebody had to use that tool in a way to destroy. But it's not the perpetrator's fault, and we can't know anything about that perpetrator. But it must be the gun. You see, this is how the left, and many on the right, the anti-gun crowd is probably a better way to put it, continues to destroy your rights. You see, when emotional things like these happen, then we make emotional decisions. Emotional decisions are not sound decisions. You see, instead of being somebody who takes action, no, they continue to choose to be reactionary. And every time they make that reaction, it comes with a loss of your rights. Every time. Whether you believe it or not, I guarantee the students at Brown University realized, man, if I had a way to defend myself, maybe I wouldn't be locked in a room for 4 hours while the whole campus was on lockdown while they tried to find this guy. Are you telling me that an Ivy League school does not have at least somewhat of a state-of-the-art security system with cameras everywhere, yet they couldn't find who or where this guy went? Come on now. Something seems off. Don't you think? You see, mass shootings in the United States take place predominantly where guns are prohibited. Now you think the bad guy would just honor that no guns allowed sign on every door at campus, wouldn't you? I mean, that sign has power. It is written in bold letters, sometimes even in scary colored red, that really means something. Yet that arbitrary, fake barrier did not stop a madman from doing something evil, did it? Weird. Do you think if there was some sort of physical resistance that this individual knew existed within that building, he would have made the same choice? Maybe. Crazy people do crazy things. Let's look at nature for just a minute. Crazy. Do you think God provided a way for animals to defend themselves against predators? Yeah, I think probably so. Have you ever smelled a skunk? Have you ever seen a porcupine? What about poison tree frogs? Yeah, oddly enough, they have a way to defend themselves from predators. What about water buffalo? Yeah, have you ever seen an angry water buffalo with them big old horns? Yeah. Yeah, they have a way to defend themselves. So why on God's green earth would somebody have the hubris to think that mankind does not have that same ability? You see, God made all men, but Sam Colt made all men equal. You know, that is a funny little metaphor that was presented 100 and something years ago. But there's actually a lot of genius in that statement. When a 120-pound woman can't fight off a 300-pound rapist, if she had a firearm, that might be an opportunity for her to save herself, don't you think? Yet when these brainiacs that we hire to represent us think they have all the answers, and they remove your ability to defend yourself, your family, and your community, that allows the predators to come in who don't care about gun-free zones, who don't care about background checks, who don't care about red flag laws. You see, that empowers them to attack those who obey those laws. They are an imbalance of freedom. Mark Smith from Four Boxes Diner, he shared this quote, and I had to take a picture of it. Let me share this because it is awesome. This is from Cesar Becerra, who predated the founders. The founders actually really liked his thought process, his genius when it came to the rights of the people. And this is out of one of his books. I forgot the name of his book because I'm completely monologuing with no show notes. But let me read you this quote. This was in like 1730, somewhere around there. This was understood for hundreds of years before we are here today. That only the obedient to the laws that disarm will become the victims. Do you think the founders may have understood that when they put the Second Amendment in your Bill of Rights? Yes, I do. And he's right. Becerra is right. When you take the arms from the individual just to save some arbitrary feeling of the masses, you're just creating victims. And we see that far too often in the United States. Far too often. It is baffling to me that we let these emasculated men, not emaciated. They're far from emaciated. In fact, they're rather plump in their greed and their gluttony of whatever they take care of or partake of in that godforsaken city. Those disgusting people. I have very little respect, if none whatsoever, for many of the people in Congress. They are gross. They are vile. That city has become a cesspool. I know, it's a district. It's not a city. Excuse me. Now, we have visited John Lott's research many, many times in this show. What did I want to bring up on this? Well, let's go down to this. There's so much data on their website. Please spend time on their website. Learn some real data. You know, actually, before I go let's go one more place. I'm going to scroll and find this slide before we jump to something else, because this all ties in together. I mean, you've already listened to me for 20 plus minutes, just bitch and moan, but you're going to have to listen a little longer. We saw something else today, actually. Our today. If you've been to Australia, I have. I lived in Perth, Western Australia, for 2 years. I actually love Australia. It has many, many faults, but it is still a pretty damn cool country. I love the people of Australia, at least the ones I was around. There's some major problems politically and socially in that country. Yet, who are we to judge? That's pot calling the kettle black. Bondi Beach, which is normally, it is a beautiful place to be. They were doing, I believe it was a Hanukkah celebration. They advertised it, invited all to come, as most people that of any religion, right? They evangelize and invite all people to come, which is, that's honorable, right? Whatever. During this Hanukkah celebration, two men, if you look at some of the news reports, they're calling them radical white right-wingers, but it sure looks like they might be jihadists instead. They roll up in a car, park on the outside to get on this footbridge, and they open fire into a celebration full of Jews. And it was, you could say it was a massacre. Nonetheless, it was a tragedy. I think there's up to 11 people that had passed away. They shot a lot of people. I can't remember the sure number. Now, these numbers could be wrong. And they're going to be ever-changing with folks in critical condition and whatever. The more news we get, the more it's going to become clear, obviously. Now, these two individuals that turned out to be a father and a son, they roll up, they have a shotgun, they have a couple of bolt-action rifles, and they open fire. And it was horrific. There are videos out there if you so desire. You've probably seen a lot of the videos, but there's more out there if you so desire to look for them. That is up to you. I'm not endorsing it. I'm not discouraging it either. Maybe it's a good thing that you can actually see what violence can take place in a public area that is unsecured and a people that do not have the blessing of self-defense. It was an area meant for peace and fun and joy for this time of year for this religious community that turned out to be a tragedy. Now, in 95, Australia decided they had enough of prolific firearms ownership, and they made it very difficult. Guns are not illegal. Guns are not banned in Australia. You need to understand that. You can still purchase firearms in Australia. It is just difficult, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and there are certain guns that are not legal in Australia. But you can get handguns, semi-automatic handguns. It's very strict. It's very tough to get. You can get bolt-action rifles, and you can get pump-action rifles. They exist in Australia, including shotguns. Okay, so to say that how do these people get guns? They can get guns. They have a permitting process. They can purchase firearms in Australia. So throw that argument out the window. I lived there. Okay, like I have friends that still live there. You can buy guns in Australia. What they don't have is the Second Amendment, and they do not have the right for self-defense. That doesn't exist in Australia. Which plays into why this turned into such a tragedy. I haven't seen the video, but apparently there's a video of even the police running from the situation instead of resolving it, which is sad. Now, what the crazy anti-gun community is already jumping on, look, good thing it wasn't an AR-15 or more people would be dead. I've seen the video of this guy running the rifle. I don't think it mattered what rifle was in his hand. It still would have been devastating. And then they say, well, Australia has had maybe one in the last 30 years of mass shootings, which is wrong. They've had plenty since then. And yes, we see more of that stuff here in the United States. But it really is an unfair comparison. More people live in the city limits of Australia, or in city limits of Los Angeles, than in the country of Australia. So it's not a fair comparison. The density is not the same. The population density. Well, you could per capita. It is not the same. You are comparing apples to walnuts. It is not the same. What is the same is people determined to do evil, to create fear, will find any means that they can to propagate that thing that they plan. That is the same. Now, the United States, many politicians, they want to do the same kind of gun ban that exists in Australia. Again, it's not a ban, but difficult. And the more we allow the media and others, politicians, to create the amount of fear and dance on the coffins of these individuals within the United States, the closer we will become to that reality. Media has a 24-hour news cycle nowadays. You can get on your phone and see anything that has happened within the last 15 minutes, anywhere, just about anywhere in the world. You have problems, psychological problems with people throughout the world. You see, when poverty comes in and all people see is negative and despair and hate, and that's all they are consuming, they start to fall in the despair, which generates hatred for other people because they feel like they're a victim in some way because they're told that they are a victim in some way, which then puts them in a scenario where they're either going to do self-harm or harm to others. We have a vast amount of people on medications that alter their personalities, alters their thought processes, which has, in some cases, on some of these medications, we don't have the historical data to prove some of these problems. Now, a lot of that is just my theory, right? I am not a physician. I do not work in pharmaceuticals. But I think we're seeing a lot of the fruits of engineered chemicals that are being pushed on individuals that have negative side effects. Now, evil people, like I said, they're going to do any way possible to do an evil act. They will find a way. Whether that is a gun or a bomb or a knife or a truck, they will find any way. Are we going to ban all those things because they are weapons of madness? Like Mr. Becerra said, if you're taking away fire because it might burn, or you're going to take water because somebody might drown, is that a logical response? No. No. Removing the ability of millions of Americans who obey the law because of an act of a few? No. No, we do not do that. Because that is just going to make the situation much, much worse. Because obviously not all millions of Americans who own those guns, they're not all a boundary that keeps evil from happening, obviously. But there must be a segment of the total population that own firearms in the United States legally. There's obviously a segment, a small percentage, that must be some kind of a boundary that evil won't cross. Because they know they're going to get shot. We're not going to talk about defensive gun use in this episode. We've talked about it a lot in the past. I will say this. It's hard. So defensive gun use numbers, they're hard. They're sticky. They're a little bit messy. According to John Lott's research, defensive gun use is somewhere between, I think it's 250,000 to like 3 million times a year. A lot of stuff goes unreported. There's a lot of like murky water there, but it's somewhere around that. Let's take the low end. Let's just say every year, which I do believe it's more than this, but every year there's 250,000 defensive gun uses a year. That is an uncalculated number of lives saved, of mass shootings stopped. We don't know what consequence there could have been. We don't know how many lives were saved in those situations. So it gets ignored. It gets deliberately overlooked because those who want to disarm you don't want to let you know that it happens so many times a day that keeping the legally armed public, keeping them having that right, saves more lives than evil takes. They don't want you to know that because they want you to make an emotional, irrational decision to give up your rights. That's the goal. And the media is complicit. And many politicians on both sides of the aisle, up to and including, in my opinion, Pamela Bondi, don't want you to have legally possessed firearms in your home. I know many people don't like it when I say the Republican Party is happy to have you disarmed. But I believe it. Because we have seen it in action this year. When Republicans had the ability to completely neuter the ATF and remove unconstitutional legislation that's been in action for over 70 years, they had the ability to take that out and didn't. They just removed the tax on suppressors and SBRs and SBSs and any other weapons. We'll just take the tax away. Well, what the hell do you think the next administration is going to do? When somebody that is extremely anti-gun is in power, what could they possibly do? Oh, I know. They'll reinstate a tax and make it so ridiculously high that it is going to be completely burdensome to a free people. That is why the NFA exists. It is a revenue-generating process to remove the rights of common people because they can't afford to exercise that right. Imagine if they did that to the First Amendment. Imagine if you couldn't go to church until you paid to have a permit to do so. Why, that would be pretty terrible, wouldn't it? What about every time you made a comment on Facebook about your neighbor's cute cat? You had to fill out a piece of paper to give you the right to use more than 35 characters. because anything over 35 characters is past regular capacity for that tweet or that Facebook post. You wouldn't stand for that. I wouldn't stand for that. So why do we allow them to continue to push against our God-given right to keep and bear arms? Why? Because the media completely pushes the lie that guns are the problem, and not talking about what is causing the perpetrators of mass murder, what's causing them to take that action. You see, it must be the gun's fault. The gun has some sort of unique power, like the evil totem from the Brady Bunch TV series, if you remember that long ago, that bad things would happen if you had that evil totem in your house. The guns must be the same way. Yet millions of Americans prove that to be a lie every single day. You see, I think as gun owners, as conservatives, not all gun owners are conservatives. There's some, I've had an experience of opening my mouth around a very active Democrat who enjoys his Second Amendment rights. And he scolded me, which I earned. I repent of that conversation because I was naive to assume that everyone that exercised their Second Amendment right was a Republican. There are some good Democrats that understand the Second Amendment as well. I don't even remember where I was going with this. We need to stop being apathetic. I think that's where I was going with this. I lost my train of thought, so obviously I must be rambling. Let's tidy this up. Let's finish this up because I've monologued this entire episode. Citizens of the United States, those who enjoy your freedoms, all of them, those who exercise all the rights written in the Bill of Rights. You need to not just exercise those rights, but you need to be actively pushing those who you hire to represent you to keep those rights intact. And if they fail to do so, you fire them and hire somebody else that will through the voting process. The only way you can hire the correct people is by being involved, not by just reading some stupid Facebook post or Instagram post about somebody who claims to be something that they're probably not, just to get your vote. Get off your couches, get off your laurels, and move it. It's time to be active. Because every time one of these tragedies happen, you're going to see the posts all over social media. You're going to hear the news reports all over the place. Everything is pushing against your God-given right to defend yourself whenever these tragedies happen. And it doesn't matter what country they're happening now. Because even when things happen in other countries, they're blaming the Second Amendment and the United States' prolific gun use, which is far more used in legal ways than illegal ways, to propagate and to pollute the minds of Americans to give up their guns. They're pushing. And eventually, if we don't do something about it, it's going to give, and you're going to lose your rights. Your children will lose their rights, or your grandchildren will never understand the joy of self-defense and the joy of exercising the God-given right to keep and bear arms. It's coming if you do not act. It's time to act. I understand these tragedies are horrible. Any death in violence, no matter what the tool used, is a tragedy. You can't hold the tool used as the reason why. You need to dig into what's causing this violent behavior and eradicate it. That is the only way. Violating a free people will not solve the problem. It will make it worse. let me show you this last thing, and then I'm going to let you go, because I know you are just enjoying this episode so bloody much. Now, for some reason, my mic decided not to record when I was sharing this slide. Obviously, it was something in my settings. So I want you to show you this pie chart. Again, this is from the Crime Prevention Research Center, so John Lott's group. And this chart is specifically important. I've shared this before, and I'll probably share it a ton of time again. So this is from 1950 to 2024. Mass public shootings from 1950 to 2024. Look at the choice that the bad guys made. 92% of the time, bad guys chose gun-free zones to commit these shootings. Only 8% out of that whole span, 92% of the time, they went to gun-free zones. Why do you think they went to these gun-free zones? Perhaps because they knew resistance wasn't going to be a problem. That's where I'm going to end it. Listen, friends, if you've stayed for this entire 40-something minutes, thank you. I know sometimes my ranting gets really annoying, and you probably tuned out long ago, but if you've made it to the end, thank you so much. If you like the show, if you appreciate the time I put into this, please, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you want to give a comment, which actually helps me a lot more than you understand because it helps percolate my show up a little bit higher and gets it in front of more eyes, please do so. If you're listening on Spotify or any of the other podcast platforms where you don't get the video, which you can get it on the video on YouTube and Rumble, which it's probably going to end up on Rumble one of these days because YouTube really doesn't like my content. If you're listening, like I say, just video or audio only, thank you. Thank you so much. But make sure that you're following the show, that you're leaving comments. All that stuff helps tremendously. Okay? I'm passionate about this, and hopefully through this episode, you understand why I'm so passionate. It's about the future. It's about the future of our country. It's about your freedom, your children's freedom, and beyond. It's important to me. I like being your voice here. I'll continue to be passionate. I'll continue to make my voice heard. And if I have to be rowdy, I'll be rowdy. I don't really care what people think. And that's just who I am. But in the meantime, till we meet again, stay safe, stay armed, and stay range-minded. Till the next time.